The United States is in the process of really beefing up their military in the Middle East. They already had a pretty good military footprint in the area, but it appears that the Americans are not taking any chances with the current situation that exists between Israel and Iran. Tensions are high once again. These two countries do not like each other very much. In fact, they view one another as existential enemies. Recently, a number of things have really been going on. And I mean, we can take it all the way back to October and Hamas, running rampant into Israel and beginning the whole situation in Gaza that we're still faced with now. And you've got Hezbollah over in Lebanon, and of course you've got the natural Israeli-Iranian hatred towards one another. But in the last week or so, there's been a couple of assassinations, which really isn't that much of a thing that would be out of the ordinary. I mean, Israel seems to have this capability of assassinating highly placed officials, whether they be political officials or scientists or security officials or military officials, assassinating them right inside of Iran. And of course, the Iranians find that really humiliating. But this kind of happened recently, more so than it normally does. They were having a celebration, a get-together, recognizing the new president of Iran. And one of the dignitaries that attended was the leader of Hamas. And of course, somehow the Israelis managed to find a way to kill him while he was there, under the protection of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard or Republican Guard or whatever they call them. I forget what they call themselves. But anyways, those guys, their elite military force. So more on egg in the face for Iran. And so, of course, they're vowing fire and damnation against Israel, as they always do. And this happened not that long ago, where Israel blew up the Iranian embassy or a mission of some sort inside Syria. And anyways, there was this high-ranking Iranian general that was in there. This general had been part of the military coordination of forces like Hezbollah, Hamas, that sort of thing, the proxy forces. He was involved in coordinating them against Israel. And so Israel took him out. And of course, the Iranians got all upset about that. And so they vowed vengeance once again. And they threw, I think, about 300 missiles and rockets at Israel from Iranian airspace. So this is the first time that I can recall, and I'm not saying I'm 100% accurate, but it's the first time that I can remember that Iran has attacked Israel from its own territory. Usually it's Hezbollah firing missiles, or it's Hamas firing missiles, or even recently it's been the Houthis firing missiles and rockets and things that blow up at Israel. But rarely is it Iran itself. So this struck me as being noteworthy when Iran launched 300 missiles and rockets at Israel. The only thing was, though, that they pretty much telegraphed that in advance. And so the Israelis saw it coming. Any ally of Israel saw it coming. So the Americans were in a position. The British were in a position with assets in the area to help Israel shoot down those rockets and missiles, or at least most of them. The vast majority of them. I don't think too many hit, if any, really, to tell you the truth. And even without the help of friendly nations, Israel by itself has a formidable air defense system. So, the current situation right now, I mean, Iran's huffing and puffing and they're, vowing to blow the house down. And that's all well and good. They do that all the time. But I understand that there's really a need for them. They feel a need to do something, and not just something like the last time. This time, they have to do something that people are really going to take notice. I don't think Iran could really do anything much to Israel militarily that could really do an awful lot of damage to that country. So the Americans are looking at this and they're thinking, this whole area could blow up here. Whether, Iran is taking delivery of military equipment from Russia. Now that almost makes me laugh. It does bring a couple of questions to mind. How come the Russians aren't using this equipment? It seems like they're desperately in need of anything they can get their hands on. Hell, they're even taking stuff from North Korea and Iran. They're using Iranian drones, those Shahed drones. So, I mean, how does Russia have all this extra equipment that they can be sending to Iran as part of Iran's vengeful counterattack against Israel. And my goodness, if any Russian equipment has, it's not the top of the line. Not that the Russian top of the line stuff is any good to begin with, but this stuff is probably like 30, 40, 50 years old. It's sort of like the stuff they're using in Ukraine themselves. But anyways, yeah, it's not going to have all the shiny bells and whistles, not on these things, no way. They could transfer some missile technology. Now that would be a kick in the pants, but that's not necessarily a thing that they haven't done already. I mean, Russia has to do something for Iran's support of Russia in their campaign against Ukraine. So what I'm really worried about is the Russians giving the Iranians the last step or two that they need to get over the nuclear hurdle and to be able to create their own weapons. And then I think we've got this is already a bad situation, but I think that would make it entirely worse. And so getting right to it, I mean, as I said, the United States already had significant military assets in the region. If you look at the Persian Gulf, if you look at the Gulf of Arabia, you look at the Red Sea, you look at the Mediterranean Sea, hell, even the Black Sea. I mean, the United States has naval forces that pretty much ring the entire area. And so the Americans, because this is a very significant area strategically, especially, well, militarily, yes, but also it's a choke point for maritime trade. You've got the Suez Canal not far away. You've got the Gulf of Aden at the other end of the Red Sea. So you've got these choke points that are really, really strategically important. And so, yeah, the Americans, that's what they're all about. They have assets in the area to sort of police this area in case something happens. And so what the difference is they're starting to surge stuff into the area. Now, the Americans normally will have a carrier sitting in the Mediterranean. Now the Americans have moved a carrier right to the eastern Mediterranean, and it's literally offshore from Israel. That carrier will have upwards of 80 combat aircraft on it, particularly F-35s and F-18s. Those planes are pretty much quarterbacks in the sky, but one of the capabilities that they do have is anti-air capabilities, so they can significantly enhance Israel's ability to protect itself from any missiles that Iran or any of its proxies may decide to fire. So that's just one carrier. With that carrier, there will be a carrier support group, and that is made up of several other ships that carry themselves missiles that could be used for that same purpose. So that's one carrier. They've got another aircraft carrier and everything that I just described here. So another 80 combat aircraft and all the rest of it. And that's situated just outside the Persian Gulf. And in addition to these carrier-based aircraft, the Americans have other warplanes in the area, F-15s, F-16s, more F-35s. These are coming out of bases that they have in Incirlik base in Turkey. They've got bases in Egypt. They've got bases in Qatar. They've got bases in the United Arab Emirates. They've got bases in Saudi Arabia. I think they have bases in Jordan. They definitely have bases in Iraq. I guess the picture I'm trying to paint there is that they've got an awful lot of air power in the region. And this air power, as I said, is not just sole sourced. It just doesn't go up there and do one thing. It does multiple layers of multiple things. There's nothing that anybody is going to do to Israel without taking an extreme pasting from the Americans. One that they're likely not going to recover from. Not to mention the Americans flew 12 that I know of, but maybe more, of their most advanced F-22 Raptor warplanes into the theater from Alaska, mind you. It just took a trip over from Alaska to get over to the Middle East and keep an eye on this situation. Those aircraft by themselves represent a huge buildup of military potential and capability on the part of the United States in that area. The only thing they're missing, really, is ground troops, and yet they have them too. more of the special forces kind. They've got boots on the ground in Iraq. They've got boots on the ground in Syria, in northern Syria, without the permission of the Syrian government, but who's asking? I think they've got boots on the ground in places like Saudi Arabia and maybe in Qatar and maybe in United Arab Emirates and Kuwait and places like that. You know, not thousands and thousands, but enough to cause some trouble if they wanted to gather up 200, 300, 400 of them and maybe pair them up with some air superiority and maybe some missile support and this, that, and the other thing, anything else they can bring to the party, maybe some drones, just to say they did. They could lay a hurt or two on targets that anybody might decide as being important enough to strike with an armed force. The Americans would be able to do that, and not just once either. So this increase in military capability by the Americans in the Middle East is something that we should keep an eye on. But as I said, I don't really think Iran can do much about anything. So look for a big show of something, smoke and mirrors and all that kind of stuff. They have to do something. They can't just sit there and take that. But I don't know how much they can really do. So, but the Americans aren't taking any chances.